Hi everyone, and welcome to the debut episode of Crafts for the Board and the Bookish. Now be honest with me, do you have a small pile of books sitting around somewhere that has no sentimental value, no resale value, and they're not nice enough to donate to the library? Who am I kidding? Of course you do. So do I. Well, we're going to turn them into some really cool roses today, so don't worry. On to the supplies. Hot glue gun, and you could use craft glue, but I'm not that patient, so if that's your choice, more power to you. Paperbacks are easier than hardbacks, so I recommend that. Scissors and dowel rods, which I got for $2.75 at Walmart. And alright, book lovers, I know this first part is going to be pretty controversial, but we have to get our materials somehow. If this book is at the end of its life cycle, we need to act like vultures and not be afraid to scavenge. So make sure to tear them out carefully. I'm not really worried about the bottom corner where it's tearing, and you'll see why in a moment. So the first step is you have to turn them into squares. So as you see here, I'm just going to fold the top edge down to the corner, and then use my scissors to cut a straight line right there at the bottom. And you're going to do this 3 more times. And on to the next step, folding. You're going to fold it upwards once, and then once more to the right. We're going to try and make a tiny triangle with this, by the way. Once you finish that, rotate it, as you see here, and then fold it 1 more time, and that's going to be 3 folds in total. And you have this nice little triangle. And it's important to make sure you turn the triangle the way that I'm showing you here, because we're going to have to cut it in a specific way. And that's just because you can cut it the other way, but it won't look as much like a rose petal. It's really up to you though. So you'll cut towards the crease like you see here, and then snip off the end. That way there's a little hole, so when you make the petals smaller, they wrap around the dowel rod a lot easier. And if you've done everything correctly, when you unfold it, it'll look a little bit like a 4-leaf clover or a small daisy. And again, you'll want to do this 3 times. Next up, this part's a little bit complicated, so you might need to pause the video. We're going to cut these 3 petals in 3 very different ways, that way we can layer them properly. So for the first layer, you'll just cut out 3 of those petals in one group, and for the second, you'll cut out 2, and for the last one, you'll cut out 1. And it's okay if these aren't perfect. Now, go grab those dowel rods we totally didn't forget about. And we're on to the next step. Basically, you're just going to layer the petals according to size, starting with the smallest, going to the largest. So you'll start by attaching the smallest petal onto the dowel rod. Then take your second layer of petal, the one with just 2, and before the glue is dry, put it on the edge of the first, and then gently start wrapping it around both the first petal and the dowel rod. And hopefully if the camera focuses, I'll be able to get you a little closer. And you'll see that for the first 3 petals, I'm wrapping them a little bit more snug around each other and the dowel rod, and that's because we want to mimic the inside of a rose, and kind of how it almost looks like the rosebud isn't entirely open. And you'll continue doing that. Make sure you're careful with the hot glue gun, because those things definitely can burn. For the next 3 layers, you're going to want to focus a lot more on having the glue at the bottom and pinching it there, rather than getting it all the way to the top, because you want to leave empty space so that it actually looks like a blooming rose. And for the final touch, you'll just want to gently bend back the edges of the rose petals onto one another. This adds a little bit of dimension and depth to the flower. And ta-da! There is your finished book rose. That wasn't so bad, was it? I'll see you guys again next month with a new project. Remember, the only limit to your creativity are the paper cuts you're willing to put up with.